All right, so jumping right in, Jake, how you doing?
Great, man. Feeling great. It's a beautiful day here in the Texas Hill Country. We had some storms earlier, but now nothing but blue skies and sunshine. Just knocked down a great meal of bunch of pasture-raised, organic, soy-free, local Texas eggs with some pastured bacon and a mixture of ground beef and ground bison with organs and a nice glass of raw milk to have my one meal for the day today. It was great.
Very nice. So funny you bring that up. For people won't know this story, so I followed you for a little bit. I want to say one of the first ones that I saw from you was your 30-day raw milk fast,
Yeah.
and I was like, all right, I can get behind this. Uh, and so now that Instagram's kind of taken off, I don't like comment on other people's stuff that much. Like it's time consuming, like just dealing with the people that are commenting on my stuff.
Mm.
And I saw your first meal after you did your watermelon fast.
Yeah.
And you said this line, and you're like, I have this wild caught shrimp, I have pasture raised eggs, and then at the end you're like, it's all pasture raised, and I was like, all right, this is my chance. I'm just gonna get in here, and I'm gonna see if he picks up on a little sarcasm. And I was like, man, I love pasture raised shrimp. And you commented back, and you're like, nah, it's wild caught. And I was like, I know, man. I'm literally just giving you shit. and then like you started following me, and then we linked up, and I was on your show, and I'm like, man, I got to get you on my show, because I love the experiments. Like,
Yeah.
I love that, and as someone that was doing the 4K SAD, like right in that, I was like, man, it's just this mindset of what can I find that's better, right? Like if I make little adjustments, if I make little tweaks, what happens? Do I feel
Yeah.
better? What happens? Some of the blood work, and so that's one of the things I love about you. But I honestly, and any of my listeners will figure this out. I don't ask questions for my listeners. I ask questions because I'm interested and hope they also find some interest in it. How did you get here? Like, what's the story of Jake? Like, I know you have the brand Life Like Jake. How did you get to this?
Yeah. Pasture raised shrimp. No, I caught your humor. It was funny. When you said that, I was like, let me vet this guy real quick, and then I just looked at your profile. I was like, oh, he's fucking around. I like this guy. Cool. Because, dude, people will say that. There are other comments where people are like, well, was the wood or is the cutting board wood organic, or is it raised from or it's just environmentally sustainable tree farms? And I was like, oh god. But yeah, it started for me as a form of recovery, to be honest. I'd been fucked up on drugs and alcohol for a long time, and didn't have a lot working for me as far as in how I was feeling. I continued to feel the way I was, which is not good. I did not want to take medication for it, even though it was being suggested that I do. I was even prescribed to certain things. I never took them. As far as an antidepressants or other psychotropic pharmaceuticals, but I just knew something was off, man. And like I kept trying to eat different things and experiment with different things, even though I wasn't kicking the booze completely or I wasn't kicking the drugs completely, and life just wasn't right. And so, during my career in natural bodybuilding, same thing, experimenting with different diets, and that definitely helped me get clean because it's pretty hard to do that and be successful at it, which I was, if you're getting fucked up all the time. So that kind of wrangled my collar a little bit to help me stay sober. And throughout that career path, I was experimenting with diets. Like I started off doing the traditional, bro, sad, macro counting, if it fits your macros, to cut and to bulk and to do all that stuff like a normal bodybuilder would do for a prep. And it was great. It worked well. I learned a lot about nutrition. Even though it wasn't necessarily the goal, I was ever the student. And then throughout that, a couple shows in, a couple seasons in, I was like, man, I wonder if I could do this a different way. I wonder if I could do this eating, if it fits your macros, as opposed to really keeping to like quality macros. And then a couple shows, I was like, all right, fuck it. I'm going to just literally eat to the macros regardless of the substance or regardless of the quality of the food. And that was fun. You know, I learned I could eat a lot of Popeyes. I'm from New Orleans, and I grew up eating Popeyes. So like people are like, what do you do? Like, do you do? I was like, well, you don't get the fried chicken. You get the blackened tenders, and you use the sauces, and you don't get this. You mix it with the rice, blah, blah, blah. But still, I wasn't feeling great inside. It was easy to put on this costume of physique, you know, and to look a certain way and be conditioned a certain way. And people see that and they think like, oh man, you're really healthy. You're in good shape. It's like, yeah, that's what that sport is all about. It's about showing something. It's about a facade. You know, many people aren't actually healthy. Many people aren't actually in shape. Many people don't actually feel good. And for the better part, most don't, because they're miserable. They've been strained. Their bodies are very stressed. And so are their minds. And that picture you see of someone standing on stage is just a snapshot of moment where you've literally peaked, you know, to use the phrase peak week, where you're trying to absolutely peak at this perfect moment to show that, you know, with a smile and all the veins and the abs and everything's just perfect in that moment, like a snapshot, like a photograph. Whereas everything else around that kind of climb up the mountain is just work and sacrifice and frustration and just stress, because you're taking your body to this limit, absolute limit. And many people just do it unhealthily. And I was one of those. I fell, you know, into that world thinking I knew more than I did and just kind of figuring things out on the way. And like I said, trying it this way, trying it that way. And to me, I'm just doing gross macronutrient calculations, thinking like, oh, it's just about the macros. It's just about the macros. Who cares about micros and minerals and vitamins and all this stuff? Which I didn't know much about then. And still, this steady cadence of not feeling well was there. Still had lots of depression, anxiety, things that I'd had from the past, and I couldn't get rid of them. I thought I kicked all the right substances in the form of booze and drugs for the most part. And then when I got like totally clean and totally sober, and I still wasn't feeling great. And I was like, fuck, man, what's going on? So girls that I'd been dating over the years were always kind of my catalyst for dietary experimentation, the reasons that I would do it. One girlfriend, you know, like 10 years ago, she's buys almond milk one morning, brings it home, or like 12 years ago, brings almond milk home, and I'm like, what's this shit? You know? And I was like, I'll try. She's like, just try it, blah, blah, blah. I was like, all right, I'll try it, sure. And it was curiosity at first, and it made the house more civil and made our relationship not as, you know, combative over something simple, because I was like, yeah, whatever, I'll drink whatever, I don't care. Oh, it's better for you this way. Sure, fine. Didn't read into it, just went along with it. And then a couple years later, kind of after I've gotten into bodybuilding and a couple girlfriends later, I just picked up these notes from different relationships, you know, stay away from this, try more of that, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, I'll do a little bit of that. I'll try a little bit of this one. And then I started dating a girl while I'm bodybuilding that was also a vegetarian. And I was like, fuck it. Oh, I'll try some more of your stuff and have some of your smoothies and your powders, and, you know, we can cook things together. Sweet. I was like, man, I wonder if I could do this bodybuilding thing like this. Wow. You know? And so that was a direction for that interest. I was like, all right, let me try it this way. And I started feeling better. Okay. And everybody's immediately going to go, oh my God, you're vegetarian. Like you said, you felt better than vegetarian. I was finally eating total quality food across the board. Before I was not. You know, as an if it fits your macros athlete, I was not. As a standard American diet, bro, bodybuilding style macro split, I was not. I was eating all kind of junk food and wrappers and, you know, GNC, basically. I shopped at fucking GNC in the vitamin shop, you know? So all the junk, and I say junk because those stores are crap. All the different sups and cookies and cream this and sweetened whatever with that and this sucralose, cellulose, allulose, whatever sugar, alcohol I could find to help keep my numbers, my macro numbers in line, irrespective of ingredients of things. But for the first time now, I'm dating this person. She eats a certain way. I start kind of absorbing some of what she's eating because it brings us closer together. Like I said, it makes the relationship a little bit easier. It makes shopping a lot easier for sure. That was a truly whole foods diet for me for the first time ever. And I felt really good. I was like, wow, this is awesome. I looked good. I felt good. My sleep was improved. My mood was improved. Like all these just markers that I said was like, okay, this is pretty sweet. And then she and I got into veganism, kind of a logical next step, I guess. And so then I started competing as a vegan. Started eating more processed things again, just because of the lack of existence in many of those things in the ratios that I would want them to be in as a vegan. It's already hard enough as a vegetarian to do anything plant-based, but as a vegan, it's much more difficult because most of those macros do not exist in the ratios that you would want them in. Like try to go find 60 grams of clean vegan protein with no fat or with no carbs. Doesn't exist. Go try to find the breakdown of this exact amount of amino acid profile that you're looking for, essential amino acids. Doesn't exist because they only exist in the animal world. They don't exist in the plant kingdom, period. So having to get these synthetic compounds into my body, all of a sudden I started regressing back to how I was feeling before. I was like, fuck. So 2019, I compete my final competition, which is the World Natural Bodybuilding World Championships. I placed really well. Finished third overall in men's physique open. I was happy. I was obviously you want to win, so I was pissed because I didn't, but I was happy for third. Like I told my mother I'd be happy with top 50, so to get on the podium was pretty cool. But right after that, a good friend of mine, he put me on to the carnivore diet, or talked to me about it, dripped the first, notion in my ear about it. And he's like, hey man, have you heard about this? And I was like, yeah, dude, keto, I got it, whatever. And he's like, no, bro, not keto. Just meat, lots of fat. I'm like, yeah, I get it, man. Keto, I've done it. Like, fuck off. And there's a lot of ego there because I'm literally with the metal around my neck in my mind. And my friend, who at the time is not a specimen of health in any regard, physically, mentally, emotionally, or otherwise. Like the dude slings blow on the side because he needs to, and like here he is giving me dietary. I'm like, dude, fucking get away from me, But he's like, man, you got to check this out. You got to check this out. I'm like, okay, fine. I'll watch this podcast that you've sent me. I'll read these articles that you've provided me. I'll watch these other videos. Fine, dude. Like, and I did. And at first they were really weird because it was very radical. And I was a vegan at the time, so it was extremely radical, not that my reasons for being a vegan were ever ethical. Like I was never about like animal rights and protection of animal cruelty and shit, which is ridiculous. But I was experimenting for the reasons I was experimenting, not for those. So I didn't have like a moral dilemma. I wasn't like, oh God, I believe in like animal, the suffering protection, and now I'm about to eat them. Like, no, I was looking at it dietarily. That's it. Like, just how would this work? I don't understand how this works. What is the breakdown of macro and micronutrients? What and how will energy be sourced, stored, utilized, or otherwise? And so I started watching, reading. And I was like, man, this kind of makes a lot of sense because I saw the similarity of when I was a very whole foods strong vegetarian and now as a carnivore, but seeing the parallel as far as in whole foods, right? And now basically eating less things, but being able to derive a more optimal form of sustenance from them. That's what I got from listening to the podcast and reading the books. I was like, okay, consume less things and be able to get more out of them in the form of bioavailability for my body. And then at the same time, not consume as many potential harmful toxins or anti-nutrients or substances which may hinder that absorption, that use. So I was like, oh, okay. So I'm getting more for less and less stress on my body. I was like, that sounds like a good thing for me because I'm dealing with stressors that I can't kind of figure out, but it seem to be kind of dietarily related. Let's try it. So I said, fuck it, I'll bite. And 4 years ago, June 2020, did my first 30 days, and I went absolute cold turkey on everything. No coffee, no booze, nothing, just meat, animals and animal byproducts, salt and water for that 30 days. And it was radical. Like the first week was like a honeymoon phase to me because I'd been eating such a low fat, for the most part, diet for the last 4 years, from bodybuilding and fitness modeling and, tiptoeing my way through every calorie. I was like, oh my God, like, eat fat? Like, this is crazy to me. This is ridiculous. Came from a family of medical practitioners with heart disease history and issues with just not good coronary tracts. And here I am telling myself to eat saturated fat in lots of amounts. And like, when I start to feel the itch of temptation, or like the wanting to quit creep in, eat more, eat more, eat more. And I'm like, this goes against everything I know, or what I thought I know, and what I believe to be right and healthy. I'm like, fuck, this is weird. So I had this multiple heads kind of hydra going on, telling me like, this is wrong, you shouldn't be doing this. But I kept watching, I kept reading, and I kept listening. Watching the podcast, reading the literature, and listening to my body. And those voices were much louder than the assumptions, the preconceived notions, the things I thought to be true. And I would say the same thing to anyone now that adopts definitely this diet, is that the hardest thing about it is not the discipline of keeping to it. It's not the shopping, it's not the cooking. It's the belief in your own feelings. Because everything else in the world around you is going to say that you're wrong. Everything else in the world around you is going to tell you you should not do this. It's not good for you. It's not healthy for you. You're going to die. Blah, 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 blah. But then my body felt better. My sleep was improving. My mood was improving. My depression was going away. I didn't have inflammation in my joints and my knees. I could feel my fists were able to clench tighter because they weren't, I could literally feel like my fists were able to clench tighter because they were smaller. Like my fingers were smaller. I didn't have just as much inflammation in my hands. My watch is looser on my wrist. I mean, just all these things, but that didn't make sense to me because here I am consuming all this salt, which is, supposed to cause inflammation. And I'm like shriveling up in the best way and passing out all kind of bacteria and just going through this kind of purge and cleanse. But I couldn't explain it. Everything I thought I knew about nutrition got thrown out the window. And it had to become this trust of feelings. And it was exactly that. And that's what kept me here 4 years later, even though, like you mentioned about watermelon or raw milk, whatever the experiment might be, I have experimented over the last 4 years, but I would say 95% of what I've eaten over the last 4 years has been animals and animal byproducts, straight up. Mostly red meat, a lot of eggs, a good bit of bacon. But other than that, animals and animal byproducts, and the occasional experiment with fruit. I've had rice a few times, thinking like, let me have a hibachi bowl, or like going to a Japanese restaurant for a hibachi table, sushi a few times. I couldn't tell you the last time I ate a fucking vegetable, which is just, it sounds crazy. I can't even remember the last one that I actually had, like before I stopped. I don't know. I just know how I feel, and protecting that is a pretty easy motivator because of the reward it gives to me. And that's where it's got me. And 4 years later, I'm still testing it. I'm still trying to, is this for real? Am I sure? I don't know. And I would say, honestly, man, because it's like I don't want to believe it to be true. The reason I test it, the reason I theorize it is like, it's like still the hunger craver, or the food addict in me. Okay, maybe if I just put this on it, or like, let me see if I can squeeze a little bit of that in there too, or like maybe I can make this taste kind of like that if I just mess with these ingredients a little bit, maybe a little fruit here and there. Okay, I'll just a taste of chocolate, like I've done these things all over the place sparingly, and still I can't disprove the feelings that I get when I'm just totally strict as a carnivore. How clean everything seems to be, how clear between the ears I am, how clear my mind is, how great and endless, boundless my energy is, how great my sleep seems to be. Like this just super steady state of like, wah. And then when these other things get introduced, harmless as they may be, even though they are natural, they're home or naturally grown as God made them, they disrupt this harmony. They can disrupt this harmony. And that's where I butt heads, and where I say to people, like, the challenge will come by arguing between your emotions and this utility, the purpose that it serves, the quality, or just the actual truth that it gives you. oh, but my childhood or my religion or my parents, my family, where I grew up, this is what we ate, this is how we did it, this is what we made, this is what it reminds me of. Nobody's saying it doesn't. But here's this thing over here saying like 1,000% this is how I feel when I do exactly this. X plus Y equals Z. Well, and here I am trying to make it go like, okay, x squared minus 5 divided by the square root of 9 plus 5 or 2 square root 5 plus 4 divided by whatever. Is it still Z? I don't know, but it's a lot fucking harder to solve. I know that. And yet the draw to that more complicated equation is what I think is the pleasure center of the brain, the abundance, availability of modern life, and our just addiction as people to food, and that we want to live to eat as modern humans rather than eat to live.
I love that. Because we have similar backgrounds, right? Like my schooling is in sports medicine, right? So, and I was a collegiate athlete. So everything I did was about just being able to perform, like recovering from injuries, making sure I didn't get injured. I was injured a lot, like a lot. And so one thing you learn like super quick on, in not only as an athlete, but in schooling, is you got to learn to listen to your body, right? Like anybody who's ever been an athlete past third grade has had some coach or trainer or somebody instill this: you got to listen to your body. If it hurts, something probably wrong, right? If it doesn't hurt, you're probably doing okay. If it doesn't swell up, you're okay. Like all of these things, listen to your body, listen to your body. And then we get into nutrition and they go, don't do that. Don't listen to your body. You have Lane Norton who goes, oh, so you're bloated. Who cares? And I'm like, and I did a video on that. And I was like, why would I want to be bloated? Why?
Mm-hmm.
Like that does not make sense to me. And so I spent a lot of time doing, the bro science diets, the fit your macros. And I luckily figured out really early that the easiest way for me to lose weight was to cut out processed foods. Mm-hmm. Like, so even when I had no idea about nutrition, like I had a bachelor's, but no idea about nutrition. The first thing I would tell clients is I had the 2 ingredient or less. I was like, if you pick up a label and it has more than 2 ingredients, don't eat it. Mm-hmm. And they'd go, well, what about this? I'm like, how many ingredients does it have? And they're like, well, why 2? They're like, well, why 2 ingredients? I'm like, because sometimes water's listed on the ingredient. Right? Like if it's that plus water, fine. Yeah. And people would be like, it'd be so hard for people. And I'm like, I'm telling you, if you cut that out and don't do anything else, you'll lose weight. Mm-hmm. And people wouldn't get it. But I knew that to be a truth for me. And luckily I was somebody that could eat super bland, right? Like I was no sauces, chicken with, a little bit of seasoning, like maybe a Cajun seasoning on it, and then eat it with plain rice, right? Like, so the reason I kind of came to carnivore, and we talked to this about on your show, was I tried that and it didn't work. I'm like, man, like what's happening? I'm eating super clean. Like what's going on? And that's when I realized that there was this other stuff, mainly vegetables, and not enough fat. Right. And so again, for me as well, it was like this mind flip of, well, now I got to up my fat. When before it was just the easiest to remove fat because, everybody knows 1 gram of fat is 9 calories. It's the easiest one. But that's the one thing that I will fight people till the day I die on this diet, is listen to how you feel. And it's not just how I feel, because people will inevitably come back and be like, well, cocaine makes you feel good, so maybe you should do cocaine. Oh, yeah. And I'm like, what are the negative side effects of cocaine? Right? Like, let's talk about all of this. Yeah. Your body will tell you, and guess what? Removing inflammation, removing brain fog, sleeping better, having more stable energy. You talk about the hands. Like when I went on my SAD diet, my hands blew up with eczema. Oh, I bet, weeping eczema, where I had like these sores and edema coming out, and I had to take my ring off, like because I couldn't get it off my finger. Mm. That's not good. That's your body telling you something's wrong. And when you realize that it's because of the food you put into it, you talk about, this is why I want to keep doing it. I don't like that. Why would I like that? Yeah. And so, when people talk about, what about your blood work? What about this? What about these studies that say saturated fat? I'm like, you know what? I truly believe, so whether you believe in creation or evolution, I believe in creation, we can get to the same point. I truly believe that we've gotten to this point because our bodies tell us what we should do. Yeah. And we've bastardized that, right? We don't listen to it anymore. We just get a pill, and then we try and deal with those side effects. But if you're telling me that all of these markers, literally everything that you've said, I have, right? Like mental clarity is better. I've never suffered with depression, but I don't have lows anymore, right? There's moments where in anybody's life where they're like, man, this kind of, I don't have it anymore. I have stable energy. I sleep better. My psoriasis has gone away. My eczema's under control. My joint inflammation's down. My acne's down. Like all of these things, which are indicative of my body being healthy, right? Low insulin, low blood sugar, like all of these things. I'm not going to worry about some arbitrary number that people then go, yeah, but see, it takes 20 years. It takes 20. Well, you know what? I don't believe that I'm going to feel fantastic for 20 years and then all of a sudden it's going to catch up.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I can definitely relate to some of those people that you mentioned with their ridiculous claims too, which they probably say about us as well, but that's fine. Yeah, it's like defending that feeling is it's a good thing. It's something you want to do. You know, when you realize like it's not necessarily about walking around and just going, I feel fucking amazing, da da da. You might not know that you feel good, but you damn sure know when you feel bad. That's what I think is kind of the misconception for a lot of people, thinking like, oh, so if I just eat really well, I'm going to walk around high all the time. It can happen, and it definitely does happen. And there's some times where you're just like, fuck, I feel like $1 million. I have so much energy. I've got like I'm almost jittery. I feel like I can't sleep because I'm so wired because I just feel so good. Definitely happens. Definitely happens. But it's more so not having these just plummeting valleys and staying down there is where you're like, this is a pretty good spot to be in. Because when you have these just crazy crevasses of depth and self-loathing, and whether it's inflammation or an autoimmune response like you talked about with the eczema or psoriasis or something like that, it's like, dude, that mitigating those or minimizing those is a great thing. So even if you're at just neutral a lot of the times, then every so often you get these, oh my God, I feel really good. Whoop, feel really good. Wah, feel really good. Fine. But don't misassociate not feeling bad with not feeling good. Because not feeling bad is feeling good.
That's so true. Like people ask, so how's your energy? Right? Do you have a burst of energy? And I try and be as real with people on carnivore as possible. Like I just posted I did a video where, I'm attempting to explain my transformation on carnivore. And I'm like,
yeah,
carnivore is not this magic that made this happen. Like the 20 years I spent in the gym is what made that happen.
Yeah.
Carnivore helped a lot, but like, let's not misconstrue this. And people talk energy, like so much, like, so did your energy improve? Do you have just crazy energy? Do you feel like you're 19 again? No, I don't. But the difference is what you said, like I'm stable.
Yeah.
Like, and that's one of the first things.
Parachute on.
Yeah, that's one of the first things I noticed when I went on, the Standard American. And one of the things I was curious about is I had some really good highs eating all that crap.
Oh, I bet.
Like I remember times being in the gym where I'm like, oh my goodness, I feel like I'm 20 again. Like, this is awesome. I'm like, why would I ever stop this?
Yeah.
And then an hour later, that same thing where I'm like, man, if I went to a doctor right now, they'd probably get diagnosed as depressed. Like, what am I doing? I'm like questioning my life. Like I have a timetable on how I'm doing this, and I'm going to stop and I'm going to be done with this. But I'm like, man, this sucks. Like my hands are all messed up, and I'm doing it to myself. And I would get that feeling of, when you have a weekend off, right, and you spend 6 hours watching Netflix, and the whole time you're like, I should do something. I should do something. And then you end up at the end and you go, dude, I just wasted my life. Like, what am I? And then you like feel even worse.
Yeah.
And like, that's what it was eating the way I was eating. And this was very short amount of time, like a week and a half in, this started happening. And I'm like, that's the difference. You hit it on the head. Like, it's not having the low. It's not feeling bad. It's not waking up with joint pain. It's the absence of all of these negative things that is the biggest positive for me.
And it's easy to take that for granted. really easy. Because the second you start feeling better, and I remember when I did my first 30 days, like I said, that first week was a total honeymoon phase. I mean, it was awesome. I was just wide open consuming everything and anything I could. The fattiest brisket, here in the Texas Hill Country, we got some of the best in barbecue in the world, dude. In the world, right? So I was just absolute wide open spigot of consuming, and it was fucking great. Just the fattiest, most moist, dense brisket, ribs, just killing the barbecue. Wagyu burgers, everything I could get that was just super fatty. It was delicious. I mean, my bacon and eggs never tasted so good in my life. And on day 11, I hit a hard withdrawal wall, unbelievably hard. I've been dope sick before. I've had withdrawals from alcohol. I've had withdrawals from stimulants, and I'd never felt anything like this. To where I was, with those things, I could kind of write off the feeling as all right, well, it's because I'm dope sick. Yeah, it makes sense. All right, it's because I'm withdrawing from alcohol. It makes sense. Going through either, outpatient program or just trying to detox my own. The feelings that would come from those things, I could justify in my mind to the states that I was going through, because I was all right, there's causal relationships here. I couldn't understand it. There's no way that just because I stopped eating food, I feel this bad now. No fucking way. Just because I stopped eating rice and vegetables and cereal and toast, all of a sudden I feel this bad after 11 days. I just had a week of feeling amazing. Everything was great. Why is it hitting me now? What the fuck is going on? And from days 11 to 14 of my first 30 days were an absolute white knuckling test for me. I mean, massive depression. I'm not going to say suicidal thoughts, but there were times when I was if I don't wake up tomorrow, I'm not that mad about it. I'm not thinking about killing myself, but I was definitely, if I don't wake up, whatever, that's fine. Just low energy, irritability, brain fog. I mean, people say a keto flu. Well, it was a fucking pneumonia flu or something, of withdrawal, because it was so intense. And in that moment, I kind of reached into my bodybuilding locker and said holy shit, this is validation. This is painful. It sucks. It's totally uncomfortable, but this is validation. This is the work telling me it's happening. This is my body going, dude, we're unfucking you big time right now. And it's not fun. We know it sucks, but you're going to get through it. And I say bodybuilding bag because when you're going through a significant weight loss and you're in a big calorie deficit, you feel it. Your energy's down, your mood is down, you don't want to do shit, you don't want to sleep with your girlfriend. I mean, it's weird, the shit you don't want to do, the desire for certain just things of normal life go away because you're so ugh. But that's the validation you get when the work is happening. You don't get a pat on the back hey, good job, Jake, you lost another 5 pounds this week. No, you fucking pay for it with these shit feelings of I gotta get in the gym again, fuck, I gotta eat another plate of this crap, and I feel heavy walking up these steps, that's the pat on the back. That's the validation of the work being done. Same thing here. If you crave any kind of food, that's not healthy. Any food that makes you crave it is not a healthy relationship. That is an unnatural relationship. Do I like steak? Yes. Do I ever fucking crave it? No. Do I like bacon and eggs? Do I like, organ meats? And yeah. Do I ever crave them or eat them so ravenously that I can't even process the texture or the mouthfeel or savor the flavor because I'm just running them through my gauntlet to get to the end of the bag, so to speak? Never. And then if I try to, I'm going to hit a stop sign real fucking fast because my leptin hormone is going to go, we're good, stop. And it's a hard break. And so that day 11, day 14 of those feelings, and I was again, pretty much avalanched on day 11 by it. There was no this is validation, great. Day 11 was this fucking sucks. I don't want to be awake right now. I'm going to just I don't know what to do. I had to call my buddy for a lifeline. Like, dude, I'm about to quit. Like, what? He's, don't. Just keep eating. Oh, fuck. That doesn't agree with what I think to be right. Like, keep eating. No, like my delicate sensibility saying, I shouldn't eat. Like, it's gonna be too fatty. I'm gonna put on like. And he's like, dude, do whatever you gotta fucking do to not break. And I was like, fuck. And so I did. And I ate more. I did feel better, but still, I was like, this is not helping too much. But I started to hear that voice of validation going, like, dude, this is the work. This is the poison getting squeezed out of you. And so I say that to anyone else, that pitting emotion versus utility, here's where that dichotomy comes in, because as long as we keep letting our emotional minds and bodies be the determinants or the judges of what is good for us, right for us, and healthy for us, you're never going to actually know what is. No, but I grew up eating this way, and my religion eats this way, or my parents cook this way, my culture, this and that. You know, we think we have a pretty unhealthy country in the United States, and we do. But in the terms of diabetic diagnosis rates, the U.S. is right around 9%. So 333 million people or whatever we have, it's like 320, just about 10% of that, right? So like 29 million people have diabetes, diagnosed diabetes in the United States. For all the red meat that we eat and how red meat is unhealthy and red meat causes all these problems, we only have, like a 9% diabetic diagnosis rate. Could be significant, maybe. Well, then tell me this. India, a country with, as of most recently, 1.4 billion, with a capital B, people, has a diabetic diagnosis rate of 30%. That's 400 million people. That is more than the population of the United States. And the consumption of red meat per capita in India is less than 5 kilos. That's per capita. That is 5 kilos of red meat consumed per person per year. And we're talking a 30% diabetic diagnosis rate. 400 million people out of the 1.4 billion. That's only diagnosed. So imagine in more rural places, less developed places, who knows how much it could be. And to think that, red meat is the cause of all, well, dare I say, the fuck it's not. You're talking about more vegans and vegetarians in that part of the world than anywhere else. And yet that diabetic diagnosis rate, in comparison to the extremely unhealthy, fat, and out of shape, obese-ridden United States, 30%, man. Blew my fucking mind. So back to that emotion versus utility thing. Well, we've got two forms of religion there. One that respects and worships a cow, another one that consumes a cow. Well, in the United States, we've got a lot of different sects, a lot of different belief systems. Some that praise animals, some that demonize, some that consume, some that live alongside, whatever. We've got a lot of options here in the U.S., right? A lot of options. But what are those options doing for you? What are those beliefs doing for us? Because statistically, they're showing not so much. And I think over there in South Asia is a great example of look where your beliefs have gotten you. That's not me saying to anyone, don't believe in something or what to believe in and what to not believe in. You mentioned creation versus evolution. Yeah, I was raised a Catholic. I believe in a greater power than humankind. I don't know what he, she, or they, or it looks like or is or where it resides or anything, but I believe there's something more to humanity than just us. A greater power, a greater sense of existence and purpose, something hopefully kind of puppeteering the strings, so to speak. But to read a statistic like that, much of that loyalty and adherence is based on religion. It's based on cultural pass down. And how much of our own is to the same, that because my parents raised me this way, this is the way I lived. I grew up in New Orleans myself, so I need to drink, I need to eat fried food. Where the fuck has that gotten me? It got me to where I had to come here. And so as long as that is the battleground of emotions versus utility, I don't know if the great debate, best diet, healthiest diet, will ever end, man. And I think that's what's going to keep a lot of people sick, a lot of people scared, and a lot of people stupid. because they're going to keep those allegiances and those loyalties. Hey, God bless you, respect you for your convictions, but to never question it, to never maybe watch a video, maybe listen to a podcast, maybe read some literature, and then maybe trust your feelings. That's what got me here. That's what keeps me here.
And like, so I can relate, right? Like peak week, water manipulation, like not having salt, eating chicken breast with Mrs. Dash. Like that
will be
PTSD in my head forever.
Mrs. Dash.
It sounds super good, right? Like,
Oh,
man, this is going to be great, and no salt. And you're like, right? Like, and part of me thinks that everybody needs to go through a moment of that. Like that is, if there's one thing that I can point to bodybuilding, it's the introspection, what you learn about yourself.
Totally.
When you're in this moment, right?
Totally.
And the same kind of thing when eating is like you learn when you go this way and you go through the keto flu symptoms. And I didn't have very bad, I kind of super weaned into it. But when you go through that and you realize what it is your body actually needs, you talk about that craving. No, I don't crave steak. Like I have a specific physiological response that tells me I know I need a fat steak, right? And typically a ribeye. That's not a craving though. Like that's different. Like there's a piece of me, and I remember I'm like, I try not to spend a ton on meat because, spending $30 a pound is like painful for me. But I remember going to the grocery store and I picked out a $17 a pound ribeye because that is the only thing I could fathom eating. It's during my 4K carnivore. I was like, I have to have this. And it was not a craving, right? It's not, I'm going to eat the entire bag. It's like my body telling me. And you check about the difference with cravings. Like cravings are, like you said, I eat the whole bag. I opened up this chocolate and all of a sudden it's gone. Yeah. I have never had that with steak. I will eat all but 2 bites of it. And when my hormones click, I'm done.
Get the plate.
I'm not going to finish it. The dog gets the rest. Yeah. Like, whatever it is, I do not want to eat anymore.
Yeah.
And when you finally understand that, you realize why these foods aren't good for you. Like you said, you should not crave any of this. Yeah, like it's to not think it's a drug. Like why do people go back to meth? Right? Meth is and this is for anybody out here. This is literally a drug class I took in school. Meth gives you the most ridiculous high you've ever had in your life, and they stay addicted because they chase that for the rest of their lives.
Yeah,
like it's always chasing this high you'll never have again. And that's literally all this food does. If the food does that to you, and I've done that, I did the 4K SAD and I had that high. But guess what? I want nothing to do with it. Like I have zero interest in going back to that because I know what it does.
Yeah.
And you bring that, and it just all circles back into, that's the way I grew up. This is what my mom made. This is what we had for family dinners. Well, at some point you have to take control of your own life, right? It's no different than somebody that comes from a low socioeconomic background. And, they're working at McDonald's at the age of 30 and they're like, oh, well, it's because I grew up poor and my parents didn't have enough money to do this. And, the rich guy who grew up with his rich parents, like it's only because we were in different scenarios that one is successful and the other's not. At some point you have to realize that once you're an adult, it's on you. Like it doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter what your education is. There's people who never graduated high school who are uber successful. There's people with PhDs that are like unsuccessful. Yeah. At some point you have to do that, and you have to do it with food. Like stop doing it while everybody eats this way, or it's normal, or it's balanced, or I shouldn't have to give my favorite. I shouldn't have to give up the foods I love. Well, then don't complain about the conditions that you have.
Yeah, man. It's old Pythagoras or Hippocrates. Don't, before you ask someone if they're ready to become unsick, or before you ask someone who's asking for healing, what is it? I'm going to butcher this, but it's something along the lines of, before asking someone if they're ready for healing, ask them if they're ready to give up that which makes them sick. Like you kind of touched on it with the ingredients, if it has more than 2 ingredients. What about this one? Well, how many fucking 4? Well, what did I say? Like, it's like they're going to try and cut the corner anywhere they can. I see it all the time. Like, hey, Jake, is this okay for me to eat? I'm like, what does the guide say? I have a literature that I hand out to everybody of I call it Provisions of a Predator, a lifestyle guidebook on how to eat and stay healthy. And my immediate response is, what does the guide say? Well, I don't know. Well, did you read it? It's like the thing on day one, my first message. Read this closely. Keep it close. It's for your resources, for your use. What does the guide say? Well, it says, what does it say on page 17? Paragraph 4. And I'm like, it's fucking right there. I know you can read it. You're smart. You're an adult. You have children, for God's sakes. Oh, yeah. Okay. Got it. You knew all along. We will try and hold on with just dire strength to anything and everything we can, because that's how hooked we are on this shit. Because, yeah, we are trying to feed, pun intended, this perpetual feedback loop of pleasure. That's modern living. We are just dopamine-seeking fucking addicts. And we're looking for it everywhere we can get it. And for many people, it's from eating. Because that's the thing that, okay, I had a shitty day. Well, I can have a good meal. I can snack. I can sit on the sofa and just dive into chips or whatever the vice might be and just close and draw the shades, and nobody's going to care. I know, because I've done that. That used to be me. Diagnosed binge eating disorder for years. So I would sit there in the dark. I wouldn't even go outside. I wouldn't do the dignity of going to actually get the food. I would get it delivered. My fucking lazy ass wouldn't even walk to go get it or ride or drive to go get it. I would only eat it delivered. And I wouldn't even have the damn courtesy to show my face to the person that was delivering it. Right in the instruction notes, just leave it at the door. I don't want to knock and have to look at you and like you hand it to me because I'm a coward. I want you to leave it at the door and leave. And that way when I open my apartment door, you don't look back and see me and judge me. That's who I was. Because that's what was controlling me, this pleasure-seeking feedback loop that I wasn't getting dopamine from in natural places, so I was using food to try and compensate for it. I was using food as a drug to try and give me pleasurable experiences, to try and induce and secrete serotonin and oxytocin and other feel-good hormones like epinephrine and norepinephrine, and give me these feelings of happiness and contentment that I wasn't getting in life because I was fucking miserable and strung out and withdrawn and trying to cheat my way to feeling good, where the formula could have never been more simple. Stop eating that and start eating this. Period. Exercise is important. Yes. Movement is important. Yes. But none of that fucking matters if the foundation is not good. And the foundation is through sustenance. The foundation is nourishment. Exercise, again, is important. It's part of the pillars. It's one of the fucking, vitals. I'm all about that. But how many people do you know that we know that work out 10 times a week and don't look like they do? Because they eat like shit. They live like shit. They go to CrossFit twice a day. They take the WOD one day. They take the strength class in the morning, the strength WOD in the morning. They do conditioning in the afternoon. Or vice versa. They do conditioning in the morning, they take the strength class in the afternoon, or one right after the other. But they don't look like someone who does that twice a day, every day. Why? Because of how they eat and how they live. Whereas, I know, we both know people that don't work out at all. Or maybe just take ballet, or the occasional yoga class, or a little bit of Pilates. Nothing too heavy resistance, not a lot of impact, not a lot of intensity, but just a lot of feeling good. Good mobility, good pliability. But they eat so well. And they live and think so well that they look like bionic fucking human beings. Why? Why do we not see the correlation there? The 23 hours outside of the gym is not, rather what we want to think. The 23 hours outside of the gym is where the fight is being lost, you fucks. Not the 1 hour in it. You think you're going to offset 23 hours of shit living and shit thinking with your 1 hour workout that for most people is half-assed anyway? It's not going to happen. 67 or 168 hours in a week, something like that, and like your 3 hours a week of exercise is what is the magic pill. That's the missing link. You are not losing the fight on the treadmill. You're not losing the fight in life because you're not on the treadmill enough, because you're not on a tough enough incline or with enough resistance and speed, or because you're not deadlifting 500 pounds, or because you're not running more. You're not beating and killing yourself physically. That's not where you're losing the fight. You want to radically change your life, improve your overall health, physically, mentally, emotionally, and every other fucking EY, LY word you want to put on it. Every adverbial condition of humanity. Focus on what you eat. Straight up. But
I mean, that's,
we don't want to agree with that. We don't want that to be. The reason is, and then take it over. The reason is we don't want that to be the answer. We want to just be able to live the way we want to, the way we've been doing it, and just hope that these other things, these externals, like, yeah, just tell me I need to run 10 miles a day, and like, that'll be fine. And I will make sure I do that so I can keep doing this other stuff and living this way. Nope. You're never going to outrun it. Go ahead and try to run 10 miles a day every day and see how long first of all, see how long you're able to do it for, and see if that helps you run away your problems, because it won't. Whereas you cannot run at all, implement a great whole foods diet plan with some fasting, some simple walks, maybe a little sauna time, and you'll fucking melt fat and get in incredible shape. Or you could keep running 10 miles a day, eating and living like shit, and let me know how long that lasts until you fall apart.
Yeah, like, and that's why I've picked these. Like, my social media fight used to be against vegans, right? And I'm like, that's the low-hanging fruit. Like, it's too easy.
Yeah.
But now it's against this whole rash of online trainers who have collectively tens of millions of followers.
Yeah.
Like, even if you just take, the 50 largest out there, tens of millions of followers. And it's a platform built on moderation, right? Well, just eat your favorite foods in moderation.
Yep.
Like, no, like, you don't understand. It's, man, the sooner we realize that these are just absolute garbage foods, the sooner you realize you don't tell an alcoholic to just have one drink a day. Right? Like, no, you tell them to get the alcohol out of the house.
Yeah.
Right? If you can't control yourself, don't go to a bar. Don't go to a party that's serving alcohol.
Yeah.
Like, do what you have to do. And that's the stance, I take with any clients I have. I'm like, no, if you want somebody that's going to tell you how to work in processed foods, go find somebody else.
Yeah, same.
Right now, am I telling you that you will never be able to eat a processed food ever again in your life? No.
Yeah.
But you should not have that in your plan.
Same.
100%. If you want to, go find somebody else. Go pay somebody.
When's cheat day? When's my cheat day?
Yeah, like, I remember all these times, like, planning cheat days and massive cheat days.
Yeah.
And that's what got me through the week, right? Because I wasn't eating food my body needed. Yeah. So I needed something. Like, no, like, get rid of it. Absolutely get rid of it. And I don't do, and that was a big thing when I was doing my experiments, is even with the 4K SAD, within 3 days after, 8 weeks of carnivore and then SAD, I lost 9 pounds of eating 4,000 calories a day, which is way above my maintenance.
Yeah.
And I don't do cardio. I hate cardio with a passion. Like, cardio for me was always punishment in baseball. I have not run over half a mile since I was probably 22 years old, which is not good, right? I'm actually, that's going to be one of mine. I'm like, man, what's going to happen if I actually try and do cardio, right? Like, what'll happen to blood work? What'll happen to physique? I'm actually curious. So probably sometime into the summer, I'll probably do a 2-month experiment and be like, what happens if I just try and ramp my VO2 max to the max
in Arizona? Love it. Summertime,
and see what happens.
Great.
So I'm like, all right, let's see, right? Because my cardio sucks. And honestly, anybody who's like, oh, you want to get your cardio up? The only reason I want to get my cardio up is because I think you should be a really, really hard motherfucker to kill. And I can't run very far right now. So if a zombie apocalypse happens, I'm going to have to fight my way out of it because I ain't running from anybody.
Roger that.
So I'm like, I should do that. So I want to see, but that's not, like, I worked out 4 days a week during this time. You don't have to kill yourself in the gyms. I used to be the guy that worked out 7 days a week, cardio every morning, right? 30 minutes on the Stairmaster, fasted at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
And then I would eat my breakfast and go to work. Like, and I'm honestly like, now will I have to cardio maybe to do the bodybuilding thing? Yeah, probably. But I'm pretty dang lean. And I have zero interest in being much leaner outside of a specific purpose. So yeah, like what you said, just change your food, dude. Like, just change your food. Stop eating this processed garbage, because even a little bit of it, I am fully convinced that you keeping a little bit of it on still continues to mess with your system and doesn't allow you to completely heal.
Yeah, man. You think about the road that got you to where you are, somebody, right? You look at yourself in the mirror and God, I used to look a lot differently 10 years ago, or this is not who I am. This is not who I see myself as on the inside. And I say that from having been able to look at like my own transformation photos, to think like, God, I drank myself that fat. I ate myself that fat. But without looking in the mirror and having that accountability, like, you're going to have denial, or you're going to think like, how did this happen? Whereas I was like, damn, I fucking did that to myself. Wow. Like, wow. But at the same time, like, okay, if I did that, I can undo it. But I sure as hell wasn't thinking like, okay, what from this list can I keep and still get to the goal? It's like, dude, the new life, the new you, it's going to cost you the old one. Straight up. And to think you're going to come to the door and, okay, when can I, sneak around the back of the house and like take my clothes off? When can I, have a free night, a cheat day? When can I have a hall pass? Like, you can't come to the door with that. I remember that when my coach, Teddy Pantelis, great guy, I love you, Ted. When we were first talking on my first show, and he was like, don't ever ask me for a fucking cheat day either. I was like, oh man, I love this dude. But it's true. Like, if you're serious, if it means enough to you, you're not gonna ask for that. And especially to think like, okay, here's the monthly plan. Well, hey, I didn't see a cheat day in there. And? Well, rhetorical question. Well, I was expecting, at least a cheat day within 30 days. Why? You've had fucking 30 years of them already, so that's 10,000 something days. Why do you need one now? It's amazing that we are just so controlled by that grip that we can't see how clear it is in front of our faces, and then that everything around us is telling us it's wrong, or that it shouldn't be the way, or just take this pill, or work out more, buy this subscription, go to this place, fly to Bali. Like, no. Nope. My thesis is a statement I like to say. The single most effective thing we can do as human beings in regard to our health is controlling what we put into our mouths. Period. Full stop, bolded, underlined, and italicized. The single most effective thing we can do as human beings in regard to our health is controlling what we put into our mouths. Well, what about fasting? Well, guess what that is? It's controlling what you put into your fucking mouth. Well, what about not eating things? Well, yeah. Just because I say controlling what we put into our mouths, it doesn't mean just consumption. That means omission. Controlling what comes in. Well, does that mean liquid, or I said anything? Controlling what? Liquid, solids, whatever. You fucking breathe it. It goes into your mouth. It counts. So controlling what you put into your mouth. Well, Jake, what about exercise? Did I say that? It's important, yeah. But the single most effective thing we can do as human beings in regard to our health is controlling what we put into our mouths. There will be a lot of people don't like that statement. A lot of people disagree hard with that statement. Fine. I think you're fucking stupid if you do. Straight up. I think you're in denial. I think you're in disbelief. I think you're conditioned. I think you're brainwashed. I think you've been tricked. I think you're reading the wrong literature. I think you're reading immovably, dogmatically ignorant literature, if that's what you believe to be otherwise. Because, I don't know, read a fucking book and it will tell you differently. One of my favorites is Nutrition and Physical Degeneration by Dr. Weston A. Price. Over the course of I forget how many years, but basically on every continent besides Antarctica, went and spent time with a few dozen, I believe, indigenous tribes, and peoples, I shouldn't just say tribes, but people that lived on their traditional diets and lifestyles. And he's a dentist. And this is in like the 20s and 1920s and 30s. Talking about Eskimos, American Eskimos, Plains Indians, South American natives, Central American people, all throughout Asia, like in weird laplands of the northern European region, into people that live in Switzerland with very fine, high-grade dairy and wheat, in like the foothills of the Alps. I forget the name of the city, but a really cool place. Throughout Africa, throughout the Pacific Islands. I mean, examining teeth and the relationship of teeth to bone structure and jaw lines and orbital bone symmetry and just overall health of the body, what kind of deformities or lacks thereof, and heights and weights and stabilities and body mass indices, and how great all these peoples from all these different places, how wonderfully healthy they were on their traditional diets and lifestyles. Examining teeth, for example, he examines 2,000 teeth in Alaska. Of those 2,000 teeth examined from people eating traditional diets and lifestyles, only two teeth, 2 instances of dental caries or cavities, 2 out of 2,000. Goes to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, or somewhere in the Congo, I believe, is examining a Congolese village. Same thing. It's like 400 teeth, like one of them out of 400. Papua New Guinea, 1,300 teeth, 5 teeth out of 1,300, whatever. Feet look great, hands look great, all the bone structure, height, weight, body mass indices, all these things. It's the same way across the board for all places he visited. Every one of these people, every one of these communities on all of these different continents, separated by oceans and mountains, never have communicated with each other, have no knowledge of the existence of the other tribes or community. But every single one of them, once introduced to westernized diets and lifestyles, immediate changes to their dental cavity prevalence, as well as the deformity of their physical skeletal structures, all of them. So what was 2 teeth out of 2,000 became 200 out of 2,000. What was 4 teeth out of 400 became 44 teeth out of 400. What was 5 teeth out of 1,300 became 250 teeth out of 1,300. And with that were deformities. People were shorter, bone lengths became more compromised, deformities of facial features and structures, not necessarily gross or what would be considered unpleasant deformities, but just enough to be able to show in a symmetrical sense of skeletal structure disparity, differences, not perfect symmetrical shapes. And in some cases, actual deformity of teeth, where teeth were misaligned, where different types of deterioration of brain mass were present, where, mongoloid or other types of degenerative disease, and I'm using his terminology, not my own, degenerative diseases were more prevalent. And these were just from one generation to the next. So parents, fine, healthy, strong, great looking, symmetrical, At some point, after having their children or during pregnancy, but at some point having adopted these ways, westernized ways of eating and living, children inherit, quote, inherit. People say or think they inherit this. It's not fucking inheriting. It's exposure. You didn't inherit that. You were exposed to this, and thus the result. X plus Y equals Z. And at the same way, that reversal, or rather that conditioning, could be reversed and was proven to be reversed by Price. So parents look great, feel great, healthy, great teeth, great bone structure, no irregularities. Adopt diet and lifestyle. Children fall down, regress, and revert back to traditional ways of eating and lifestyle choices, and the grandchildren are fine. That is not inheritance, that is exposure. That is what happens to us. It is not that we inherited these things, it's that we are exposed to them, and they cause these disparities. If you drink water that has lead in the pipes and you get lead poisoning, that's not that you inherited lead poisoning from drinking water with lead pipes. You were exposed to lead and thus got lead poisoning. It's the same thing here. That is not a generational pass down through genealogy. That's not a genetic disposition. Your parents were exposed to it. They passed it to you through pregnancy or being in utero, or as children you ate it, you were exposed to it. And then it was able to be reversed miraculously. No, it's not a miracle. That's exposure and lack of exposure, and then body returning to its natural state of homeostasis and doing what it does. So it's not the diet that makes us feel great. Like, it's not that a carnivore diet is so amazing that it's the steak and it's the meat that's doing. It's our bodies. Our bodies are amazing machines. They were born perfect. They were born to do what they do. For 99% of us, we were perfect. Nature didn't make a mistake. We might have a few quirks here and there. Like I said, for 99% of us, that's the truth. There are, of course, people that deal with things that God knows how they do, but they find a way. But for 99% of people, you are very fortunate to be what would be considered naturally perfect in the form of evolution or creation. And to think that something's wrong with you, I would say is not where you should believe. And to think that it's this diet that's doing all this, that's making us feel this way, it's not the diet, it's us. It's just the fact that everybody else out there is wearing a fucking weight vest on and they don't even realize it. In the form of habits, in the form of negative self-talk, in the form of what they feed themselves. Jesus, like, you're never going to get past that black cloud as long as you keep pouring rain on it. You're never going to be able to, like, come out of the surface and breathe if you just keep a hand over your mouth. And that's literally what these foods do. You know, there's a reason why Doritos and Coca-Cola or any of the majors from Yum Brands or Frito-Lay or whoever you want to put into that run the Super Bowl commercials. There's a reason you don't see, like, Farmer John and Jane with their mom and pop, you know, farmer's market or pop-up food store with healthy and organic and fresh produce and animals that, you know, grew up in beautiful environments to serve you and your needs best and healthily. Why that doesn't get advertised? Because there's no money in that. You know, a patient healed is a customer lost. And for many people, they're lifelong patients by choice.
100%. That's a great segue into the end of it, at the risk of turning this into a 2-hour podcast. Man, this has been awesome. Where are you on social media, your website? I know you do a ton of stuff, so tell everybody where they can find you.
Yep, lifelikejake.com and lifelikejake for all the channels at lifelikejake.
And I will, I'll tag you in any of the ones that these go up on. Thank you very much for being on. This has been awesome. Real quick before we go, what is your next experiment? Do you have one lined up?
I don't, to be honest. I have some things in the wheelhouse. I'll give you some. Yeah, sure. I'd love to do 30 days of IV therapy. So no solid food consumption, strictly IV therapy. I have a friend that's an administrator of that, or an esthetician. I don't know what the proper title is. I don't want to be wrong. But I spoke with her about it, and she's like, "You want to do what?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think that'd be a pretty fun experiment." She's like, "I was like, just put it all on my, this arm, my tattooed arm, so I don't look like a fucking junkie." My friends will be like, "Dude, what happened? I thought you got off the stuff." I'd be like, "Well, I was never shooting up, but I think that'd be a really fun one. Challenging, very, but nonetheless, I think that'd be really cool to see what could be done there." I've had a lot of people talking about to do nothing but asking me to do just eggs for 30 days. I'm not too into that, to be honest. I'm not like drawn to that. I'm pretty drawn to the 30 days of IV therapy. I think that'd be rad as fuck. So that's what's in my head right now. Otherwise, it's like bacon, eggs, and raw milk. But again, I'm not like that drawn to that. It's like, to me, this next mountain to eclipse would be like that 30 days of IV therapy. So that's kind of where my head's at.
That would be awesome. I will be eagerly awaiting the next one. I highly recommend you guys go give him a follow. Lots of cool stuff. You guys can go check his previous stuff like the watermelon fast and the raw milk. Appreciate everybody who tuned in, and we'll see you guys next time.